Marty Comstock again from Comstock Metal Shaping. This week's video we're going to talk a little bit about hammers, body hammers in particular, and some of the different types. Some of the more uncommon hammers that we kind of get into, some of the ones that I use often enough. This here is my favorite go-to, Proto or Plom 1424. The one I use primarily is made in 1937, back when you can actually find a date stamp on this. We also rebuild all our hammers by taking the heads off, and if the handle's in good shape, we're able to rebuild them using two-part epoxy gel that we wet everything with, reassemble the head, and put the wood and the guides back in. Basically, the face of each hammer is finished to a 24-inch radius. We find that that's anything other than dead flat is really nice. 12 inch is a little too aggressive, but you want a couple hammers that do get a little bit more aggressive. So that's my go-to hammer. These are some of my common dollies. I believe this one's called Universal. This one's called the Heel. This one isn't quite a toe dolly. It's made by Martin. It's another common one. What we can also do is we can actually make our own dolly material, cold rolled steel. You see the marks in it from getting gouged up and whatnot. You can clean that off, and then rock and roll through it in a vise. Then we get into just a basic blocking hammer. I've got a good number of these from big to small. This is handy. Again, getting back to the radius, this is a very tight radius for getting into small areas. You can actually finish with this, but it's a little bit heavier to do so. The marks on this panel were made by this hammer consistently to get the stretch, and it was tuck shrunk around. So that's our common reveal hammer. If you notice, a lot of door skin hammers have got the angled head so they can get underneath something. Let's say, for example, that your door skin edge on this edge here, and there's material coming up over it like a lot of doors are nowadays. You can actually fold that edge by getting the hammer angled out of the way, and you can fold that edge over all the way through. Another balanced type of hammer. This is a jeweler's hammer, as it's sometimes called. You actually hold it in the middle with your fingertips, and this is good for doing trim work. You can just sit there and knock out trim in stainless. That's what I use that for. These are some of the most common hammers. Not common, these are some of the most handy hammers I've ever got. I call them linear stretch or reverse curve hammers. If you notice, they are tightly rolled in one direction or the other. These are a little bit larger, a little bit less of a diameter, but a little bit more weight. These are nice for reverse curves. Say like on a wheel well, it's almost always a reverse curve. How do you get in there, and how do you hammer and dolly that? Hammer like this would be most effective. These aren't very common. Dagger Tools actually sells one. But you can also take a Harbor Freight hammer, door skinning hammer. You can cut it and fold it and make it work. This was a lot of time spent in that, but it does work well. This is called a turret hammer. It's another Proto Plom type of hammer with a longer handle. You can reach in and you can do pick work on a turret top like on a 40 Ford. I like this one because of the super small radius, and it balances. It fits very well. This is a slapper that we used to make, and this is used for finishing material. It gives a wider surface area. You've got varying degrees of hit. You can hit it closer to the tip, or you can hit it back in the heel area for a little bit more effectiveness because of the added crunch of the weight. One more thing about hammers. You know, some of these have got green handles on them. Hammers are held out here on the end. That's where you get your most force. Holding it up here, you're taking away all the advantage of holding the hammer. So you want to make sure you can hold your hammer out at the end. You can put your finger on it if you're doing real fine finesse work. And the finger helps you aim. One thing I encourage you to do is to practice left-handed, because there's going to be lots of times you reach around doing something and you can't switch arms. Practice left-handed. Get good at it. I am still practicing to this day. That's it for today's stuff. Any questions, comments, feel free to ask. And this is our section on body hammers. Enjoy.